Second part of the leftover questions that I had from the early sessions in the Law of One series. And this video is going to concentrate mostly on healing, which is a topic that I didn't cover too much. Let's go. So this video is going to cover session 2, 3, and 4, but mostly 4 because that's where the healing content is concentrated on. Now, the first part that I have here from session 2 is the way that Ra started the session. And the reason why I wanted to include this is because, as you saw from the previous video, that was the first time they were communicating, and they came in with a sort of introduction, I would say, of themselves, and they had something prepared to say. And that's why last video was so long, and it was very philosophical in the way that they describe things. I'm pretty sure that they wanted to give the best impression of the Law of One, and their introduction, as it usually is the case, was very philosophical, which is the majority of the content of the Law of One that the raw material, concentrated on was, again, philosophical. So in this one, this first part that I'm going to show is how they communicated in the beginning of session 2. And it's important for a reason that we're going to take out once we read it. And let's go straight to it. So again, this is session 2, where Ra started saying, "I greet you in the love and the light of our infinite Creator. I am with this mind-body-spirit complex which has offered itself for a channel. I communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time-space. Thusly, would I assure this group that my own social memory complex has one particular method of communicating with those few who may be able to harmonize their distortions with ours, and that is to respond to queries for information. We are comfortable with this format. May the queries now begin." And this is how Ra established the way they wanted to do this channeling, this communication, this information transfer, if you will. And it's very different from every other channel or communicated entity that has come through the channeling of somebody, because they usually come with information that they want to share. They come with information that they want to transmit, that they want to have the humans involved get a grasp on. This is so in many ways with the majority of the channels, and Ra is the first one and only one that has done this format in the way they did it. This is the reason why the channeling of Ra is so revered, because not only of the content but of the way they denied information in many ways, like we have seen in previous videos, and in this whole first book that we're finalizing with this complimentary video with the questions that I didn't cover. You can see that they were very picky about saying certain things, and very diligent in not giving information that was not relevant to the topic at hand, or even breaking free will, or maintaining the law of confusion, which is the law of free will, and all that stuff. So I wanted to include this so you can see how they started. And they say, and essentially, listen, we are, well, first of all, greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. They always said this beautiful way to introduce themselves and also to finalize the session. That's something that I don't put in my videos because it would be redundant and it's not conducive to too much learning, other than seeing, how they greet and say goodbye, I guess. But also they say, okay, so we communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time space. As they always say, it is your prerogative to say to ask the questions. It is ours to interpret the law of one. They don't even communicate their thoughts. Rarely do they communicate their thoughts, but they just interpret the law of one in our understandings with our language. And I mean, it's so specific and it's so precise the way they communicated information that is just pristine and beautiful. And even there are some mistakes that they even made, which is funny. It just shows their human nature, if I can use that terrible term to describe higher entities who are not here incarnate, but they do have those mistakes that they made. Let's put it that way. Anyhow, so they say, thusly would I assure this group that my own social memory complex has one particular method of communicating. I'm pretty sure that this has to do, as we have covered so far, with the distortions that happen in so many times throughout history when they try to communicate something, that they are just very, picky, like I said, in how they communicate stuff. So they're saying, you're gonna ask the questions, we're gonna respond, and that's just how it's going to be. That's how we feel comfortable, and let the questions begin. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get into more of session 2, which I believe is the only question that I didn't cover in session 2. And Don was saying, we're very interested in the entire story that you have to tell, and in getting into the law of one in quite some detail. There will be several questions that I'll ask as we go along that may or may not be related directly to understanding the law of one. However, I believe that the proper way of presenting this as a teach-learning vehicle to the population of the planet that will read it at this time is to investigate different facets of what you tell us. Big introduction by Don, saying, you spoke of crystal healing. One other thing I might mention is that when the instrument becomes fatigued, we want to cut off communication and resume it at a later time after the instrument is recharged. And if the instrument is suitable at this time, I would like a little discussion of the crystal healing that you mentioned. So in session 2, they were trying to go around the major questions that include Ra. And of course, they went through Egypt and Akhenaten and all that stuff that we cover already. And this was the part of crystal healing that I took out because first I didn't have all congruency for me to express it in a way that made sense, even though I had a little bit of a notion, but not enough. And second, because it wasn't part of the format that I originally had. Like I said, I just wanted to cover certain things and certain topics, and I don't know, passion just got me, and I just started doing more and more until I just ended up doing everything, except some questions that are not, like, say, people were going to visit, so they would ask if they could be present, or something about, their cats. I don't think at this point they talked about cats yet. Gandalf, what's the name of the cats they had in Alien Research? One of them, at least. And so on. I mean, it's just questions that I took out, and you guys know the reasons. But in any case, they were talking about Egypt and all that stuff, and that's why Don said, we're interested in the story that you have to tell, but also, we want to know about healing right now, and crystal healing that you mentioned when talking about the pyramids. That's what they were talking then. So let's go into the answer that Ra says here to Don. And they say, the principle of crystal healing is based upon an understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body, as you would call it. There are crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body. There are crystals which work upon the distortions from spirit to mind. There are crystals which balance the distortions between the mind and the body. All of these crystal healings are charged through purified channels. Without the relative crystallization of the healer working with the crystal will not properly be charged. Okay, so big answer here. The principle of crystal healing is based upon the understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body. So we have to understand the hierarchical nature of our body in terms of mind, body, and spirit. This has to do with our energy centers, and the mind being one part, the body being another, and the spirit part of the complex. So we have to first understand that, and then we can talk about crystal healing. So there are crystals that then work on those sections, if you will, of the complex that is the mind-body-spirit complex. and some work from the spiritual to mind, so from spirit to mind. Then there are also the balance between the mind and the body, and all of this has to do with the proper crystallization of the healer itself. When we understand what healing is, and we're going to cover this a lot more in session 4, this same video, but in the session 4 questions that mostly I took out because it was all about healing, and had nothing to do with the context that I wanted to do in session 4. And healing is of balancing all our energy centers, and balancing and also harmonizing and organizing or synchronizing those interactions between those centers of consciousness that are each and one of them manifested and represented in the body. So just for short, we're going to balance these energy centers. This is what's going to happen. You have seen, and I'll make a lot of parallels in this, because plant medicine or psychedelic experiences, when it's done for healing and not for fun, they do this stuff. They help to balance the energy centers. This has actually been measured with scientific instruments, where they see the energy centers. They have a way of measuring. A Russian scientist, I believe, developed this technology, and they see when they go to ayahuasca, they measure their energy centers being off. And once they do ayahuasca and they come out of the ceremony, their energy centers are much more aligned. Really cool stuff. So again, healing in this way with crystals has to do with the same principles. And this, say, the crystals that work for spirit, then they are concerned with the top of our body, which is our head. Crystals that work for mind and body are concerns with the mind and the body representation, which is the torso itself and our energy centers there. So again, crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body, that has to do with that. There are specific crystals for it. There are crystals which work upon the distortion from spirit to mind, and there are crystals which balance the distortion between the mind and the body. So spirit to mind and mind to body, associating the body with the lower energy centers, and mind with the center, the heart, and the throat chakra, which are the ones considered the mind itself. So without the relative crystallization of the healer. So this is a very important one, because the healer, now that we know this, we know that the healer is not touching, so to speak, the healed or the patient. They are, in any case, they're channeling the energy through the healer and into the healing or the patients, the healed person. So what they're doing is, just because they're so crystallized, they are able to empower these crystals to what do they say? To charge the crystals. Exactly. So they need to charge the crystals, and that's how they work with crystal healing, because they have such a channeling that it's almost like a pure channel of energy that is the same and always the same. So the healer needs to be a purified channel for this crystal healing to work. Rod's gonna speak further on this, and they say the other ingredient is a proper alignment with the energy fields of the planet upon which you dwell, and the holistic or cosmic distortions of streamings which enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement within these shapes is of indicated aid in the untangling or balancing process. Again, we are, these are other ingredients for a proper alignment of the energy fields that are us. And remember, we are being fed by the planet, and that's why the energy fields of the planet need to be also aligned for a proper or concentration of energy, for this to be to work in a fast pace, let's put it that way, which is what the pyramids, coincidentally, they were talking about that. The pyramids were a funnel of this energy which concentrated the energy and created different vortexes where there was initiation, and the healing chamber, which was the king's chamber, and this whole process that was the pyramid itself for concentrating the energy. So in the same way, we can use all these alignments in using the energy centers or the energies in streaming into, and also cosmic in streamings. So all of this has to do, and this is why the pyramids, they said there is not much to do with the pyramids anymore because they're so out of tune. So that's what they're talking about. Streaming scenes enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement. So yeah, that's essentially the same thing. And like they said, untangling or balancing process, because we have distortions, natural distortions that happen through our society or social complex, and the way we are brought up and how we perceive the world and so on. So that's what untangling and balancing process is. And the last part that Ra says here, I believe, says, okay, to go through the various crystals to be used would be exhaustive to this instrument, sure enough, although you may ask us if you wish in another session. The delicacy, shall we say, of the choosing of the crystal is very critical, and in truth, a crystalline structure such as a diamond or ruby can be used in a purified channel who is filled with the love light of one in almost any application. So yeah, well, first of all, to go through all the crystals to be used would be very exhaustive, but also the delicacy, like they say, of choosing the crystal is very critical, which is something that we don't have the information, at least I don't. They didn't give it there because in the line of questions done, I'm pretty sure they gave up the quest for healing with crystals and so on because it was rather complicated, and moreover the initiation itself was the biggest challenge, which we'll talk about in this video. But yeah, the delicacy, shall we say, of choosing crystal, yes, and then the diamond or ruby is actually interesting that they mentioned that, because a crystal has a, say, potency or capacity or potential that is relevant to the structure of the crystal. So a structure such as a diamond, I believe is the Mohs scale, M-O-H-S, if I remember correctly, has the hardness of the crystal categorized. So the ruby and the diamond are actually at one of the toughest that exist, and you can see that the more is crystallized, meaning that the atoms are aligned properly, which is the same thing that we're trying to do, aligning ourselves, then the more power there is. And for this use and other uses that we're gonna discover soon why Ra said, like, yeah, this is probably not a good idea. So yeah, and again, they emphasize used by a purified channel who is filled with the love light of one in almost any application. The healer is a crucial part in this, and we're going to discuss that too as we move on. I think now we're definitely at the end of question 2.3, where Ra says, this of course takes initiation, and there have never been many to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortions, leavings which initiation causes. May we further inform you in any fairly brief way upon this or another subject. So, initiation is a huge part because that's what makes the crystallized healer. But also, initiation is not easy for this. Initiation is a process that, like they said, there have never been many to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortion leavings which initiation causes. For this purpose, initiation is very tough, it's very hard, and it starts with the healer. The healer itself needs to be completely pure in that sense, and not completely, but very little distortions. We have examples of these healers, true shamans, real shamans. There are aborigines that live in, say, my country or my lands in South America. Not that they're mine, but I associate myself a lot with South America because that's where I was raised. And shamans there are very, very good at this, and this is why they're sought after for shamanistic work with plant medicine, because they have this sort of crystallization themselves. You can see that they'll never judge you. They just see you as another self, and they have all this process. They live the law of one without knowing anything about the law of one in this representation as we know. This is mostly for us science oriented intellectual people who like to see the world in squares and triangles, I suppose. But yeah, they live the law of one way more than we would be able to at all, most of us at least. So again, just putting that into context there. All right, session 3 had just 1 or 2 questions, I think, that I didn't cover. And Don, I just wanted to put this for completion. Don says, I am reminded of the statement, approximately, if you had enough faith, you could say to a mountain to move, and the mountain would move. I assume this is approximately what you're saying, and I am assuming that if you are fully aware of the law of one, then you're able to do these things. Is that correct? All right, before I read the raw part, they were talking about how they built the pyramids here, and Ra was explaining how they use thought to communicate to the consciousness of the rock. So yeah, that's why Don said, you know, if you have enough faith, then you can move a mountain, because faith is just that, it's associated. It's just one interpretation of faith. It's not fully understood in our ways what faith really is, but it is directly related to the consciousness of everything, and with trusting in and of itself. It's the best way we can describe it. So, all right, so Ra says here, the vibratory distortion of sound, faith, is perhaps one of the stumbling blocks between those of what we may call the infinite path and those of the finite proving understanding. You are precisely correct in your understanding of the congruency of faith and intelligent infinity. However, one is a spiritual term, the other more acceptable perhaps to the conceptual framework distortions of those who seek with measure and pen. So yeah, just they're clarifying how faith, the term faith semantically refers to this, and they say perhaps one of the stumbling blocks between those of what we call the infinite path and those of the finite proving understanding. The infinite path being associated, for what I see in the way they're saying, then the congruency of faith and intelligent infinity. Precisely correct in your understanding of the congruency of faith and intelligent infinity. Yes, and this is like the spiritual term is faith. When they say yes, faith is just a spiritual term that we use, and the other more acceptable perhaps to the conceptual framework distortions of those who seek with measure and pen. Us, just like I said, you know, those of us who are very attracted to the law of one and how they explain, then we can understand more that conception of say faith being understood as intelligent infinity, or our understanding of intelligent infinity in that way. So that's what they were trying to say there. And again, this has to do with the pyramids. You can see why I didn't put this into it, because it would have been, I don't know, to me at the time it would have been a little bit more distracting when we didn't understand much about intelligent infinity, at least at the point that we were in the series. So the next question from Don in session 3 that I excluded was 3:15, and he says, well, then you speak of the pyramid, especially the Great Pyramid, I assume as primarily a healing machine, and also spoke of it as a device for initiation. Are these one and the same concepts? We know this already. So Ra says, they are part of one complex of love light intent sharing. To use the healing aspects properly, it was important to have a purified and dedicated channel, or energizer, for the love light of the infinite creator to flow through. Thus, the initiatory method was necessary to prepare the mind, the body, and the spirit for service in the creator's work. The two are integral. So yeah, Don was inquiring about, you know, there was a healing machine and initiation machine too. So was it both? Yes, of course. First of all, you needed to have initiates in this, so they can be channels, so they can heal other people. So they're part, I love how they say they're part of one complex of love, light, intent sharing. That's that was the purpose of the pyramids, the, you know, love, light, and intent sharing which is, you know, what we are inclined to do with service to others, not what the Egyptians did, or we did as Egyptians in the past. Remember, I don't like to separate, you know, those of the past, the Atlanteans. So some people have said, you know, oh, others. No, it's it's all us. We did this. So now we're here to say, okay, let's mend this. Let's make amends with our past and what we did. But anyhow, so yeah, they needed the channel, and the channel needed to be initiated. So the two are integral, and that's why it was done that way. Okay, next question is now into session 4, and we're going to go more into healing here. Well, the rest is going to be healing. So Don says, is the size of the pyramid a function in effectiveness of the initiation? Ra says, each size pyramid has its own point of streaming in intelligent infinity. Thus, a tiny pyramid that can be placed below a body or above a body will have specific and various effects, depending upon the placement of the body in relationship to the entrance point of intelligent infinity. I'm going to give you one example of this. For the purposes of initiation, the size needed to be large enough to create the expression of towering size, so that the entrance point of multidimensional intelligent infinity would completely pervade and fill the channel, the entire body being able to rest in this focus area. Furthermore, it was necessary for healing purposes that both channel and the one to be healed be able to rest within that focused point. Let me address this one first, and then I'll give you the cool example of the previous slide. So first, the pyramid needed to be huge because of the way our space-time here, where we are, is needed for this funneling of energy to create those vortexes that created, say, the King's Chamber at that time with the cosmic energies too. So imagine just energy coming from everywhere at that time would be funneled in a way that would create a vortex. So we would have these chambers where people would go to and have different experiences to activate the body or understand the body first, and then understand the mind and the spirit in the King's Chamber. So if I remember my pyramid homework correctly. So it needed to be huge because the whole space, that vortex, would have to be large enough for humans to be there, essentially. That's why the size of the pyramid was important for that. And we're gonna now cover the little part. I think that explains, yeah, that's essentially what all the jargon they're saying. You know, it needed to be big enough for those vortexes to fill the room and not be tiny, because every pyramid has that function. And here's where I'm going to show you. If you're not watching the video, watch right now, because a pyramid such as this one has its uses. It's a perfect element that creates the same thing. So right now I'm holding in my hand a pyramid that has the same funneling. It's doing the same thing no matter what direction you move it. So this pyramid is funneling the energy, and the top of the pyramid is where it's coming out, right? And it has, believe it or not, it has a very tiny place inside where there is that force or that vortex that creates the possibility of initiation. But we, like they said, we can't fit in there, so we can't be in there. That's why building a pyramid would have to, we could build a pyramid like that. Well, actually we can't. We haven't been, you know, with old Egypt, just gonna put the parentheses there, with all the Egypt, you know, trying to explain how the pyramids were built, we still can't try it. You know, in Japan they've tried, I think it was to build a model, like a very reduced model, and they couldn't finish it with our current technology. So yeah, you know, those who said that it was done with just ropes and butter and whatever else they have created, it's interesting. But if we were able to, we could create it and it would work, but it's not necessary anymore. We've covered that already in session 3, I believe. But in any case, to talk about the other slide, and I'll go back just to read it again. Say each size pyramid has its own point of streaming in intelligent infinity, the one I'm holding right now. Thus a tiny pyramid, like this one, that can be placed below a body or above a body will have specific and various effects depending upon the placement of the body in relationships to the entrance point of intelligent infinity. So something like this, and I'll just give you the spoiler. In further sessions, they're going to talk about how you can place a tiny pyramid, or you can be placed above a tiny pyramid like this one. And the idea is that you put it, if I remember, this is how I've been doing it, you know, not very often, I should probably do it more, but if you need energy, you can place it under a pillow and lay on top of it, no more than 30 minutes, because it can cause further distortions in your auric fields, apparently. So if you want to take a nap, for example, this is a great idea. Get a pyramid, put it below a pillow where you lay down, and it's going to give you a little bit more energy, or at least feel that, or fill rather, so you can feel more energy, your aura. That's how I feel that it works, and I understand it. So pretty cool. Try it. Tell me in the comments how to work. You know, share it. All right. So 4 point now. We're going now to say we're going to get more into healing now. So Don says, is it possible for you to instruct healing techniques if we could make available these individuals that have the native ability? And Ross says, it is possible. We must add that many systems of teach learning, healing patient nexus are proper given various mind-body-spirit complexes. We ask your imagination to consider the relative simplicity of the mind in the earlier cycle and the less distorted but often overly complex views and thought spirit processes of the same mind-body-spirit complexes after many incarnations. Whoa, we have a huge one here that I'm going to probably extend myself more than I should, but there is so much to take out of here. I ended up putting something like this in a post in my Facebook group, the Spanish one, but you're welcome to join because I'm having everybody in the English Facebook group to go join the Spanish one because there's a lot more activity there. There's a lot of people that speak English, of course, and you know there's a lot of exchange there. And I posted about this because I thought it was so relevant for people who consider themselves wanderers or who have been here for a long time to understand why the complexity of ourselves right now in our crises are so prevalent as opposed to other people. Let's read this again. It is possible. Question was if they, you know, they can, if they would supply the person that they could teach them healing and all that stuff. But I'm going to go a little bit away from healing, just to talk about one specific point that we can extrapolate and see who we are right now, who you are right now, and why your life is so complicated or complex. Very refreshing, just like knowing or feeling that you're a wanderer makes you understand a lot more your past, your history, your feelings, your emotions about this society and so on. This has to do with who we are. So yes, it is possible. We must add that many systems of teach learning, yes, there's a lot of way to teach in essence, you know, the healing or the patience, and mind-body speak. Okay, this is the heavy part. We ask your imagination to consider the relative simplicity of the mind in earlier cycles, in the earlier cycle, and the less distorted but often overly complex views and thought spirit processes of the same mind-body-spirit complexes after many incarnations. So take, for example, your first incarnation. Your mind was very simple, but very distorted, because your mind was a not very well developed, didn't have many experiences, wasn't developed at all, and was very distorted because it didn't understand what this reality was. But over time, in many incarnations, like they say, after many incarnations, the same mind-body-spirit complex, you, after so many of them, your mind would become from simple to complex, very simple to very complex, but much less distorted, because you have had so many experiences, you have so many past lives that you have been training who you are, and that makes the mind very complex but less distorted. When the mind is very complex, you have these crises because of the same reason, and I would definitely associate the same feelings of wanderers here on Earth, is because those that resistance that we find in society is a lot more obvious to us, because we are less distorted in our views of intelligent infinity, the creation itself. We are naturally inclined to be of service to others, and this is very chaotic for us. So our less distorted but overly complex mind has this issue of coping with society. Shall I put it that way? You can see yourself reflected on this and know that your life, complicated as it is just a result of how less distorted you are and of how many incarnations you've had in your past. So I just wanted to include this because even if it's not part of the healing process, it's something that can help you understand your own existence here. So I'm not gonna go further into this because I think it's fascinating, but I'm going off track already with the healing. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. So Ra continues and says, we also ask your imagination to conceive of those who have chosen the distortion of service and have removed their mind-body-spirit complexes from one dimension to another, thus bringing with them, in sometimes totally latent form, many skills and understandings which more closely match the distortions of the healing patient processes. So here they're just referring to, also keep in mind that there are some who have brought this innate healing ability. Some of them are very obvious in the way they just heal people. They just do it, in such a way. It's natural to them, and that they're referring again here to wanderers in an essence. Those who have come from another dimension, they're removed from another dimension and come here, they bring in sometimes totally latent form those skills of understandings which are closely related to healing. They are naturally inclined to be healers, and yeah, we can identify those people here. So that's what they were talking about. All right, next question. Don says, I would very much like to continue investigation into the possibility of this healing process, but I am a little lost as to where to begin. Can you tell me what my first step would be? Ross says, I cannot tell you what to ask. I may suggest that you consider the somewhat complex information just given and thus discover several avenues of inquiry. There is one health, as you call it, and in your polarized environment, but there are several significantly various distortions of types of mind-body-spirit complexes. Each type must pursue its own learned teaching in this area. So you can see already what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, how Ra was very hesitant to say anything, like say, okay, we cannot tell you what to do or what to ask. We suggest that you consider the somewhat complex information just given and discover different, avenues of increase, because there's only one health. We're obsessed with the body health, with the symptoms, and this is what modern medicine does. It completely ignores the energy bodies that are associated with our physical body. All those astral bodies and so on, higher self, that are associated with our health. Health is just one, which is the alignment, the proper alignment of our energy centers, period, and our acceptance of those manifestations or distortions, if you will, because we are all meant to be distorted. Distortion is the universe. The universe is not pure. The universe is completely distorted because the creator and creation needs to be different. Creator is unity, is pure, is undifferentiated, intelligent infinity, whereas the creation is distortions of that purity. So we must accept all these distortions and not follow. This is a trap, for people who are seeking initiation and, the path of the adept and all this stuff. You need to accept that's what's called the darkness of your heart too. Accept it. That's who you are. It's fine. It's a way for the creator, yourself. Don't think about the creator as outside of you. It's a way of the creator to experience itself, and it needs to be experienced in polarity, negative and positive. You are made of those. So again, there's only one health, but they say there are several significantly various distortions of types of mind, body, spirit complexes. There are different ways of us, to exist. Me and you are the same consciousness, but we're experiencing ourselves differently because that's the purpose of it. So each type must pursue its own learned teaching in this area. Each type of us needs different healing. It has to do with our acceptance of self and knowing who we are. This is why, healing can occur not only with crystal healing and pyramids and, plant medicine, but also with introspection, inner work that I talk about all the time. This is what true healing is. And it has to do, of course, again, I'll keep saying, knowing and accepting itself. And Ra talks about this. So that's it. That's all I have to say about this. Very important, very, very important, but just to emphasize even more. All right, so Don says, I would assume that the first step would be to find an individual with ability brought with him into this incarnation. Is this correct? Ra says this is correct. I'm not going to disagree with Ra, but I'm going to just smooth out this question when they say that has to bring that healing. Even if you're not a wanderer, even if somebody's not a wanderer or doesn't have previous incarnation, it does have the potential to become a healer. It's just that, of course, for this purpose, it would be a lot easier to initiate somebody who has the skills already from previous incarnations as a wanderer or as a dweller, an earth dweller, if you will, to become a healer. It's a lot easier. So just wanted to point that out because there's no separation or differentiation here aside from the potential that the mind-body-spirit complex may have. So Don says next, once I have selected an individual to perform healing, it would be helpful to receive instruction from you. Is this possible? They say this is possible given the distortions of vibratory sound complexes. This is possible given the amount of words that we use. It's basically what they're saying. Don says, I'm assuming then that the selected individual would necessarily be one who was very much in harmony with the law of one, though he may not have any intellectual understanding of it. He should be living the law of one. Is this correct? Ra says, this is both correct and incorrect. The first case, that being correctness, would apply to one such as the questioner itself who has the distortion towards healing, as you call it. The incorrectness which shall be observed is the healing of those whose activities in your space-time illusion do not reflect the law of one, but whose ability has found its pathway to intelligent infinity regardless of the plane of existence from which this distortion is found. Okay, so let's cover this. Don wanted to know if they would have to be living the law of one but not be intellectually knowing or knowers of the law of one. And Ra says something interesting. They say, the first case, being correctness, yes, somebody who's living the law of one, like Don was, and has the potential to heal, but doesn't heal. Don wasn't a healer, but hasn't had the potential. The incorrectness, which shall be observed, is the healing of those whose activities in your space-time illusion do not reflect the law of one, but whose ability has found its pathway to intelligent infinity, regardless of the plane of existence from which its distortion is found. So people who become healers and are not naturally living the law of one, so they have all kinds of distortions. We're going to cover this a little bit more in the next question, or next questions. I forgot what it is, but those healers are natural healers, but they are not living the law of one for whatever reason. They may be distracted here in the illusion for whatever the case may be, but those are the two possible. So they don't have to be living the law of one in order to be healers, and that's the clarification that we're making here. All right. So Don says next, I'm a little confused. I partially understood you. I'm not sure that I fully understand you. Could you restate that in another way? Ra says, I can restate that in many ways, given this instrument's knowledge of your vibratory sound complexes. I will strive for a shorter distortion at this time. Here we go. Two kinds there are who can heal. Those such as yourself who, having the innate distortion towards knowledge giving the law of one, can heal but do not. And those who, having the same knowledge but showing no significant distortion consciously towards the law of one in mind, body, spirit, or spirit, yet and nevertheless have opened a channel to the same ability. The point being that there are those who, without proper training, shall we say, nevertheless heal. So I'm not going to linger too much here because I just lay the foundation of this. This is what I said. Don, or people like Don, who follow the law of one, or like you, who are very interested in the law of one and its ways, you are a natural healer, but do not seek it. And it doesn't mean that we all need to be healers. We all have different portions of ourselves, and this is just my speculation here, why we're not pure healers. I don't think the planet needs pure healers right now. I think it needs scattered healers like we are. In a way, I am providing some sort of healing by providing this information or interpretation, and make you create the knowledge so you can know yourself even more. And other people do it in different ways. So you may have your own way. You may talk to people and calm them or make them wonder or whatever it may be, you know. As long as we're making people know themselves, recognize themselves, remember themselves, then we're doing that. But we don't do the healing, the healing that is it's fully dedicated. Few people are on earth that can do this right now. But then there are those who have opened their ability to heal, and they do so, but they don't live the law of one. They don't consciously live the law of one in mind, body, or spirit. But they did open that channel already. Now, Ra has something to say very interesting about these people who are, let's say, distorted healers. Put it that way, without sounding offensive. So Ra says, it is a further item of interest that those whose life does not equal their work may find some difficulty in absorbing the energy of intelligent infinity and thus become quite distorted in such a way as to cause disharmony in themselves and others, and perhaps even find it necessary to cease the healing activity. Therefore, those of the first type, those who seek to serve and are willing to be trained in thought, word, and action, are those who will be able to comfortably maintain the distortion towards service in the area of healing. So, people who are living the law of one, and they are willing to be trained in thought, word, and action, they will be able to sustain this work. Doing this work is not easy, and I have experienced it to some degree in my interaction with plant medicine in the past, and being there in the space for people. I can tell you that is not an easy thing. It takes a huge toll on the body, it takes a huge toll on your mind and even your spirit. Doing this work is not easy, and that's why seeking shamans, and by no means am I saying that I had any sort of application as a shaman in this case, but just being in that space as an instrument of help was very, very taxing. Imagine what shamans have to be able to do this work. So people are not easily able to heal in this way. So those who are trying because they do have the ability but are not living the law of one, meaning that they have many distortions, like myself, I wouldn't be able to do this kind of work at all. I don't think I would ever be able to do it because that's not my direction, and I recognize it in myself. I can see it, but I can appreciate it. Then those are, they get quite sick. Now, in my interaction with facilitators and shamans themselves, I was told that many of these facilitators and shamans who are dedicated to this have found sickness and illness in themselves because they have taken away the healing process of the patient into themselves. So it's almost like they have taken charge of the catalyst that was supposed to go through them, through the patient, and taken them upon themselves because of their fervor to heal. And they have become sick, and they have become ill, and in many times they have stopped doing what they're doing because they couldn't sustain intelligent infinity in this way. So again, just to reinforce this, if you have tendencies of healing, explore them, because only you know that path. But keep in mind that you're taking tax on yourself by healing other people. By no means I'm saying, stop helping people. That's not the purpose. I'm just putting that into context of the true healer. Like I said, the biggest example that I have is the shamans in the lands of South America, and other places, of course, not just South America, but now very much known because of ayahuasca and other plant medicine. So yeah, it's a very cool process, but you gotta be careful how you approach it. Even as a patient, you must take caution as to how to approach the plant medicine. But I digress. Let's go to the next question where Don has, and he says, then would it be possible for you to train us in healing practice? Ra says, it is possible. Don says, will you train us? Ra says, we will. And finally, Don says, I have no idea on how long this would take, or if you can even tell anything about that. Is it possible for you to give me a synopsis of the program of training required? I have no knowledge of what questions to ask at this point. I'll ask that question in the hopes that it makes sense. Don had no idea where to go, and rightly so. I would probably feel the same way. So Ra says, we consider your request for information, for as you noted, there are a significant number of vibratory sound complexes which can be used in sequence to train the healer. The synopsis is a very appropriate entry that you might understand what is involved. Firstly, the mind must be known to itself. This is perhaps the most demanding part of healing work. If the mind knows itself, then the most important aspect of healing has occurred, for consciousness is the microcosm of the law of one. Second part has to do with the disciplines of the body complexes. In the streamings reaching your planet at this time, these understandings and disciplines have to do with the balance between love and wisdom in the use of the body, its natural functions. The third area is the spiritual, and in this area, the first two disciplines are connected through the attainment of contact with intelligent infinity. So this ends the questions that I had left over, and it lends perfect terrain for us to go into the conclusions. Let's reread or go back to what Ra was saying. Well, first of all, they say, you know, yes, we have different ways of telling you how to become a healer. As you can see, the synopsis is pretty much the same in the way that the mind must be known to itself. So this is knowing, know yourself, right? This is perhaps the most demanding part of the healing work, because once you know yourself, you can start accepting yourself. There is no other option. Once you know yourself, you either reject or accept yourself. I can't find conscious reasons to reject yourself once you know who you are. But people do. I guess, you know, it depends on the distortions that they have and how they associate themselves with the true egoic self and not with the true self. So that's it. That's consciousness, like they said, is the microcosm of the law of one. I mean, that's it. Your consciousness has everything you need to be aligned with the law of one and intelligent infinity. Now, the second part has to do with the disciplines of the body complex. In the streamings reaching your planet, and this time, this is very crucial to go into the conclusions and to interpret this part. These understandings and disciplines have to do with the balance between love and wisdom in the use of the body in its natural functions. So yeah, the second part is the body. So first the mind, then the body. The third area is the spiritual, and in this area, the first two disciplines are connected through the attainment of contact with intelligent infinity. So mind and body are the crucial ones, because those are the ones that connect you with intelligent infinity once you have proper alignment. So what's the cool part here that I want to extrapolate? And question 418, if I remember correctly, is Don asking clarification on this part, because he understood the first, the mind, which we already clarified. And I'm going to go deeper into this, and we'll go into the conclusions after this beautifully. So they're saying the second part has to do with the disciplines of the body complex. Boom. Body means, like they're saying, it's related right now in the streamings reaching our planet, which has to do with understandings, love and understanding. Love and understanding. This is what we're going through. 4 and 5th. We're going with those vibrations. They're intertwined. Even if we're going to 4th density consciousness, the planet itself, we are going into, this is why some people actually refer to 5D ascension, because we're going into 4th and 5D comprehension of our own beingness as the cosmos itself, no longer as a human body, or we start merging into social memory complex, which is a different story. We can talk about that more in a very particular video I'll probably make in the future. But in any case, we're going there. Now, what does this represent for us humans? Beautiful, to see it in the mystic manifestation of the universe and so on, but what does this mean for us? Well, first, they're saying, very important, is that these understandings for the body and the disciplines have to do with the balance between love and wisdom. Love of the body and wisdom over the body, right? Love and wisdom over the body, right? In its natural functions. What are our natural functions? Sleep, food, exercise, sexual energies that we, or our sexual interface that we use. These are the natural functions of the body. To deny them is to deny the self. So to be eating properly, which is a whole different topic, to exercise the body properly, different topic too, sex, different topic, and just sleeping, which is rest. Meditation is another part that helps in the, I wouldn't say it's a natural function, but I would say it is a natural property of the body to meditate, to contemplate, to be disconnected from the mind. Mind and body, two different things. The body needs to disconnect from the mind sometimes and just relax, be out of the storms of the mind. So, conclusions here, very important. Healing, as we know it, is something that we are all seeking. In fact, the health crisis that we're looking right now at is only the interpretation of what we think as a society, we think is the proper functionings of the body, right? So we have our biases, and we think the body should work in the way that it's supposed to be in conventional medicine, which is completely system based. By system, I mean matrix oriented, is only concerned with the body, with the symptoms of the body. We're not taking into consideration our energy body. And just without getting too deep into that, we can see that our health is not in the hands of conventional doctors, it's not in the hands of conventional medicine and this reductionist science that excludes the rest of our energetics, so to speak, and it's in our hands. So by knowing this, you can start including in your lifestyle something that is very mindful, that has to do with understanding your body and your mind to connect with spirit. The iterations of this are infinite because we're all different cases and we all have all types of distortions and self-worth is a very important part here, self-esteem and so on. This is just the work that needs to be done critically by the individual, not by somebody else. The healer only aids in the channeling of the energy, much like you can do to help other people to understand a concept by just explaining and channeling the information through them. You cannot make them understand themselves. Just like I can show you something, I can point at something, but I cannot make you see it or even interpret it or grasp it. When you see the sun, you see a different sun that I see. So take charge of your healing, take charge of your health, and everything that's being manifested in the body started here in the mind. So you can backtrack anything that you have into the mind. How you do it, like Ra said, there are an infinite way to do it, and there are so many ways to do it. So it could be plant medicine, like I said, it could be meditation, it could be energetic healing, psychotherapy, even, anything. Just it's up to you and whatever resonates with you. Don't feel lost. Just ask your heart and you will find it. The last thing is, taking out from the last slide, love and wisdom needs to be how you balance your body right now, say with sex, with food, with exercise. These natural functions of the body, you need to balance it with love and wisdom. And I'll say this one last thing that I can take out from the raw material. Ra said that the reason why there is a preponderance of cancer right now on society for the past 100 years is because our vibrations of the planet have changed from third to fourth density vibrations. And because of that, our mind keeps thinking in a way that disassociates itself with the body. And that's anger, that is a fear mostly. All those emotions that are lower emotions are not compatible with fourth density vibrations, which is the sea of energy that we're swimming through right now. We're not compatible with those currents if we're staying in that anger, fear, and rejection and separateness of each other, which is the foundation of everything, of all of our problems, is being separate from each other, from the environment, from the cosmos. So Cancer is the final manifestation of disintegration of the body within the body. It's those cells that are rogue, that are creating their own habitat and are consuming the energy of our body. Is the same as negative entities that are not an entity in and of themselves. They are separate parts of us, just like the cancer, the tumor, are separate parts of us that are trying to live away from us. And by subtracting, I think there's a huge analogy there from negative entities to cancerous cells. All they're doing is just eating us up until the point that it just stops working, that organ, and we both die, the tumor and ourselves. So again, there's so much to cover in healing that I don't have enough time and not enough knowledge even, but I can only give you the framework that I have. Hopefully it makes sense. This is all I have. I hope this was helpful, and in any case, leave me any comments if you want to share anything that you can you have an aha moment here. Very cool, because I love reading what you guys have to say in interpretation of my interpretation or your interpretation of the Law 1, as some of you have done, and I truly appreciate that. So without much to say, I want to thank you for watching as usual. If I don't think you're new to the channel, but if you are, subscribe, like, and all that stuff. And go watch the other videos if you're new, because they have a lot of information if you like this kind of content. So enjoy it, have fun, and take charge of your healing. I'll see you in the next video.